Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our third Open Data Conference. This is our second webinar. And let me just move on so you can see this. So our second webinar, which is called How Can Digital Tech Competence Help in Employment and Foster Entrepreneurship? And our moderator today is Dr. Toa Cham. Our panelists are Dr. Joseph Leung, former member of the Industry Training Advisory Committee of Education Bureau, Dr. Wendy Lee, who's the Regional Manager for Autodesk, Mr. Owen Chong, who's the Senior Business Development Manager for Amazon Web Services, and Mr. KC Lam, who's the Head of Aftercare at Invest Hong Kong. So as I mentioned, This is the third Open Data Conference. The organizers Social Science Research Center of the University of Hong Kong with the very able assistance of Just Tang. Our co-organizer is HKPC. Our sponsors are AWS, AECOM, Arup, Autodesk, CIO Connect, and OpenCert Hub. You will have received already from Just one email that contains information about our sponsors, and we will probably send out one more email at least from our sponsors, but we will not be sharing your personal data with them. So I hope you will be supportive of this. We're very grateful for the support of our sponsors. So as it's a webinar, we're going to start by watching some pre-recorded videos. So let me switch to that. So we're going to start with the video by Joseph Leung. So let me just stop my share. And I want to share the video. Got to find the right video to share. Should be this one. And so we have 5 videos to watch from our panelists and our moderator. So we're going to start with Joseph.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Joseph Leung. I've been engaging in ICT industry for over 30 years. Apart from engaging in IT, I have been widening my knowledge and talents in other areas, such as mediation, business psychology, design thinking, as it is much easier to access knowledge and skills through different means of learning, as long as data is available. Open data is digital data that is made available with the technical and legal characteristics necessary for it to be freely used, reused, and redistributed by anyone, anytime, and anywhere. This concept has proliferated and made diverse data sets publicly available from various organizations, including government spending, research outcomes, archives, surveys, environmental sensing, and museum collections. While sharing data online is not new, the formalization of open data has created a global environment and led to a huge growth in the breadth and depth of data available. More than 250 governments and global and local organizations have initiatives that create and share open data, with more than 17,000 data sets of international relevance from the World Bank alone. With the open data movement, there is a desire to find ways to broaden public engagement. There are also widened calls for data literacy to be considered as a key 21st century skill set. The Open Data Charter, which has been adopted by 17 national and 35 local governments to date, includes a principle to engage with schools and post-secondary education institutions to support increased open data research and to incorporate data literacy into educational curricula. Besides, from employment perspective, automation has created more jobs than it has destroyed over recent years. It looks like transformation in occupational roles and the shifting of jobs both within and between sectors will accelerate. Some new jobs will be created in areas where total job numbers are relatively low, but where particular competencies will be required. The future will provide good employment prospects for employees with excellent knowledge in the areas of education and training, health and communications. In addition to the provision of initial training, further training and retraining will also be important. Employees will have to engage in lifelong learning through further training if they are to be capable of responding as rapidly as possible to changes in skills requirement triggered by automation and digitization. However, low-skilled employees in particular are often less willing to undergo further training. This reluctance could be tackled by measures by the states and employers to raise awareness of its importance. Open data offers potential for personalized learning, for example, by supporting a student to learn with data on a topic of interest to them. Responsibility for this may be taken by the learner or teacher, or could be performed by an algorithm. Research suggests that personally relevant contextualization of activities can improve motivation, level of involvement, and learning. Last but not the least, the digital transformation of society industry requires new approaches in education to prepare students to deal with technological change. Education must be at the core of society's response to these powerful forces. Digital social innovations and corresponding skills should be used in all sectors of education and training because technology skills are essential for global citizenship. Such innovations can be particularly efficient in teaching entrepreneurial skills. In conclusion, we can foresee open data continue to play an important role in both employment and foster entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. To Chang. Today, I'm going to set.
Okay, so I'm just going to change the screen share for a moment to try and see whether I can get
in for our panel discussion. On top.
I want to try and get it so it's full screen for everybody. So please excuse me while I change this arrangement. Okay, so let's try this screen share again. Okay, let's see if this time it will work full screen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. To Chang. Today, I'm going to set the scene for our panel discussion. My topic is Citizen Data Scientists, Unlock the Power of Open Data for the Society and for our economy. So my background is all about data, from Excel, BI, big data, and AI. So I've been in the business for almost 30 years. I worked for IBM, HSBC, Oracle, and recently Cyberport as well. So we nurture a lot of enterprises and startups to making use of data to really helping them to build a business and also make their customer happy and make their operation more efficient. So I'm going to talk about how we make use of data, and particularly in open data, and help our customers and our enterprises to really advance their business. So if you're looking at this chart is basically the maturity of big data. So from the very beginning, we start with insight, and then we try to make use of the data to predict the future. And then we create business model making use of data, and eventually we monetize the data. So in this process, we are adding values to the business and also to the society. But why some companies doing it better and some companies not doing it better? Because they not necessarily only make use of the data we see here, particularly big data and open data. And more importantly, the employees and the leaders in this company, how they can make use of data. We're not talking about only the data scientists. We also talk about laymen, business people, HR people, accounting, all these professionals in your company, how they can reskill themselves to make use of data. So if most of the people have a higher data literacy, that means the company has a higher chance to really turn their data into knowledge, into wisdom, and into business. So I'll give you an example, DBS, they actually train over 50% of their workforce on data as you look at this. So more importantly, why they invest so much on talents, particularly on their data literacy, is because they believe that with all this data knowledge, you could say that democratize data literacy to all the people, all the employees they have. They can better serve their customers, and they can actually immerse and embed the services into their customers' works and lives through data, through API. And how we can reskill and upskill our employees, including ourselves, to be having a very high literacy. There's a concept in Gartner called citizen data scientists, which is actually not data science, but they are capable of making use of data to generalize outcomes, to visualize the data, working and collaborating with citizen data scientists, working together with data scientists. Together, they can help the company to grow. So the purpose of setting up our company, OpenServe Hub, is really democratize data literacy to everybody in the company, everybody in the society. In the company, the people can make use of data, so they can help the company to monetize the data, to serve the customer better. In the society, if the people know how to make use of open data more effectively, they can create impact, social impact to the society. So setting up this company, we have a mission to do that, to really help people to make use of data in the economy and also in the society. So we set up a platform, which is a certification platform, so people can take training and also sit for examination and get qualified our professional examinations. So we are governed by two boards. One is the advisory board, one is the quality assurance board. And also we will issue certification to those that qualify. So we have, Mr. Herbert Chi. He is the master of the data. So he's signed, and I'm going to sign all the certification that the people get graduated and pass in the examination. So we'll talk more about this in our panel. Thank you so much. I'll see you in a while.
Okay, so that was Dr. Charm's presentation. Now we have Dr. Wendy Lee's presentation on how can digital tech competence help in employment and foster entrepreneurship.
Hello, my name is Wendy Lee. I'm very excited to join today's panel discussions about digital tech competence. Every day I work with professionals in different industries that apply technologies to create and manage design data for smart buildings and cars with less environmental impact, and movies with more emotional impact. Technologies can help to automate how things are designed in the digital world and are made in the physical world in the smart city. For example, professionals in the building and construction industry are generating and managing building data during its design, construction, and during the building or access life cycle. The process produces model database, which encompasses building geometry, spatial relationships, geographic information, quantities, and properties of building elements. It's a new way of working using new technology to facilitate project management, better construction process control, cross-disciplinary collaboration, communication with external stakeholders, decision support, and risk management. In the future, work for our industry is going to be much more simulated. We will use data to drive our decision and explore possibilities. And we are going to do this virtually before we do it in the physical world. Technologies support design processes, cloud sharing, and data insights and analytics. It allows professionals to use the rich information created and then puts their data at the center of their projects and easily transform that data into valuable insights. We can also use the computer to automate tedious and repetitive tasks with processes like generative design technologies. Software will explore design options for us, and we can select the options that best fit our criteria and human needs. At different project stages, professionals can choose what kind of data to be shared with their project teams or the public for consultation in a later stage. All of these changes, simulation, virtual reality, generative design, and more, will help automate work in our industry to make us more productive and overcome the challenge of workforce scarcity. And just imagine how much further we can go when we partner our human innovation with technologies for automation. Through human imagination and automation, we can shape the world around us. What's making the digital transformation possible is better use of data. Let's continue to apply technologies and open data for a better world. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was Dr. Wendy Lee's presentation. Now we're going to move on to Casey's presentation.
Thank you for joining this session this afternoon on how can digital tech competence help in employment and foster entrepreneurship. My name is Casey and I'm with Invest Hong Kong. I'd like to start this afternoon with a short story. This story takes us back to the UK in the post-war years after the Second World War. After the Second World War, a socialist government came into power in the UK. This socialist government introduced many socially minded policies, including free health for everyone, free education for everyone, and even free milk for children. In health, in those days, what people believed was children, babies, when they're born, they're weighed. And because mortality was high in infants in those days, a weighing of the baby was believed to be a good indicator of the survival of that baby. And so before the war years, this was the practice. After the war, and with the improved resources at the National Health Service, they started taking more measurements, including the length of the baby, but also, among other things, the weight of the placenta. Now, as some of you will know, the placenta is the interface between the baby, the embryo, and the mother. And its surface is very large, and it's responsible for the exchange of nutrients to the baby, to the fetus, and the exchange of waste to the mother. Now, that generation of babies, which was born back then, is now coming to the late stages of their lives. Some of them are 70 years old or thereabouts. And someone did some analysis of that, discovered the existence of this data, and did some analysis on the data collected. And they discovered that the diseases that this cohort of post-war babies, which are now in their senior years, they're displaying things like heart disease, diabetes, and other diseases. And they found that actually there was a high correlation, not with the size of the baby. In other words, what was previously believed to be a good predictor as the weight of the baby for survival and therefore good health of that baby growing up, but rather the weight of the placenta relative to the size of the baby. In other words, even if it was a relatively smallish or medium-sized baby, if the placenta was large in relation to the baby, it indicated that, or was postulated that, the exchange was happening effectively. And therefore, the baby got all the nutrients that it needed, and there was no bottleneck in the exchange of nutrients and waste. And they found that actually these babies are now healthier, as elderly, are healthier than those that were perhaps large in absolute size, but had a relatively small placenta. So all this to say, I mean, data is so interesting. And discovering data is so important, and the quality of data that's put into a database is so key to the your ability to mine and get insight out of it. So I would argue that on one hand, having good data skills and having high data literacy is really key to getting, understanding what we have our hands on and seeing what is available there, and then turning that into something which is insightful and useful. And so with that, I'll leave it there. We'll be discussing some more about how data is used and so on. But there is a lot of food for thought. Those of you who are thinking of doing a STEM-related degree, I would definitely encourage it. The skills that you gain from that go far beyond what the discipline that you're studying covers, and your ability to get a feel for what a number represents, trends. People talk about direction of flight, and so on. These things are all relevant to future decision making. So thank you.
Okay, so we have missed one video, correct? Sorry, let me just stop the screen share for a moment.
Hello?
Hello, my name is Wendy Lee. I'm very...
Okay, sorry, let me just come back. Yeah, I accidentally skipped over Owen's presentation. I'm sorry, we missed something out. Okay, let me share again. Here we go.
Hello again. This is Owen Chong. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager from AWS. In case you haven't attended my earlier session on how cloud computing empowers collaboration and innovation using open data and shared data, let me give you a quick summary. For data scientists and analysts, they need to spend 80% of their time and effort on data preparation. And using cloud technology can help access and analyze high-quality data at scale. AWS, we launched Open Data Program, and the reason we do that is because we care about our customer and they care about open data. We have many customers who have a mandate to share data publicly, whether they are a government agency, a research institution, or a nonprofit. We also have many customers who are looking to make use of that data at scale to build out new products and services. In 2018, we launched the Open Data, the registry of open data on AWS. Currently, there are more than 200 data sets, and about 90 data sets are geospatial related. There are data on Landsat images, air quality data, and transportation data. And for those data owner, when you prepare your data, one of the things that we share with our customer is to use a process that we call working backwards. The idea is to build a purpose-driven open data set. Now imagine your user is able to access the least amount of data possible to get the answers they need. And to do that, we use 3 different tools: the press release and FAQ. Press release helping us to imagine the user experiences and the visions of our data set. FAQ really helps us to lay out the operation and execution details. Now, once we have these 2 information ready, we usually use them for internal debates. And once the debate is done, we will start with preparing the data and start the prototyping. When you start the data preparation, there are a number of key principles we want to share. Number one, treat your data as like a product that requires update, user manuals, and also support services. And how you're going to optimize for analysis, a couple of thoughts. Number one is to use some cloud optimized data format, organize your data using object data storage, and partition your data, make it using SQL to curable, and then also create an index or a data catalog, so make it easier for people to access it. Now, the final one is to build a community around it. There are very good examples. One of that is London transportation. Once the data being open, there are more than 600 applications built using those data and provide to the Londoner. So with that, if you are interested to learn more about the working backward process to plan purpose-driven open data, or if you would like to speak with one of our solution architects on building out a cloud data lake, feel free to contact us at this email address. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Owen. So
thank you for joining this session this afternoon on how can digital tech competence help in employment and foster.
Okay, so now what I want to do is to put up a QR code so that you can all participate. So everybody, so we now have more than 70 participants, and I hope you guys will all participate by completing the poll. So I hope the QR code is big enough. And I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Cham, who's going to handle the Q&A.
Okay, let's see. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, John. So it's very important everybody get a common understanding from all different videos from the speakers. So we have a common scene of the topic today. So more importantly, we want it to be more interactive. So we will start with the discussion with all different panelists first, but definitely we have the Q&A section that you guys, all the audience today can feel free to ask questions. But before we talk, I think you have probably watched our video already. So I think thank you for John to show the QR code. I would like you to really start with the QR code and answer 2 questions over there. So it's basically looking at how you see how important data competence is and where you are. So if you can do that, I give you 1 minute or so if you haven't done so. So after 1 minute, we will talk about the result. Right, so again, we have 4 panelists today. So briefly, I think you already know what their background if you joined at the beginning, right? So we have Casey, very experienced, as you see. The example quote from Casey is very, driving us to think more about how we can make use of open data and data to make social impact, because the mortality of the babies is one of the examples. So sometimes we are pretty much influenced by our bias from human sense and might not be that objective. I think that is one of the great examples. And Joseph also talked about a lot on the education side. So how we can enable our next generations to really, empower them with data literacy so they can make a big impact to the company and the society. And O1, I think, is a very good example in terms of making more data available and using the collaborative approach to do that. So I think it's very important to really get more people to contribute data so we can have more data to play around. Even you have the top data scientists in your company, without data, there's nothing you can do, right? So I think thank you for AWS for that particular contribution. And last but not least, of course, is Wendy. So very important for the building and construction ecosystem. Now people can collaborate not only by business partnership, but also through data. They can co-create a lot more things for your industries and for the stakeholders in your ecosystem. So that's what I got from all your videos. I'm sure that you'll talk more about that. Let me, as promised, I'll let you know the result for the first question. So the first question, if you can remember from the pool, is actually how important of data-driven mindset, innovation, and data skills, or you call data literacy, to your career development in the next 3 to 5 years. So what I got from you is very, very obvious. I think that's why you're here, I guess, right? 65%, 65%, 65% is saying that is critical, important, critical. And 30% is important, and 5% is nice to have. So I think the data spit it all, right? So 65% is a very high percentage, is critically important to all of our career in the next 3 to 5 years. And then the second one is how ready are you? If it's so critical, so important, how ready are we? How ready do we speak data, right? So the question two, the question is how good is your data literacy? So let's see, 25% you're saying that you are in the advanced level. Congratulations, you are in business. You run out of jobs. You can make a lot of money in the future, right? That's good. 25% is advanced and 25% is moderate. Okay, good. So you have something you need to do upskill a little bit more so you can become advanced. And 45% is basic. That means you have a lot of chance to reskill yourself and upskill yourself on the data literacy. And 5% no background at all. It's good and bad, right? That means 95% you have some background on data literacy, but it's not in the high level yet, so you have room for improvement. So I think that set the scene for everyone in this panel and also for all the audience, how we see the importance of data and are we ready for it? So let's start with the panel now, right? So everybody ready. So the first question to our panelists is, what do you see? How importance of data literacy is, and is it is it to the competitiveness of the company and individuals in today's digital economy? So it's basically the same question, but I think you have a lot more experience you can share with us how important it is, particularly to the society and to the economy today. So can we start with, who wants to start first, right? It seems that Joseph is ready for it. May I start with Joseph?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cham. Actually, yes, I think aligned with what I have shared. I personally believe digital literacy is the basic, because if we want to become a digital ready or what we say smart city, we all need to upscale, all of us, including underprivileged, including every people. So very important is how we are going to manage this. It's not only done by industry and government. Every one of us has a role to play. So I think the question is, how are we going to uplift our data literacy in the near future? Is it just training is good enough? What type of education? And also because of COVID-19, I think some recent problem becomes serious again is the digital divide. But this is another type of digital divide compared with recently. So I think it's very good if we can, more parties, we can have an open data mindset. Everyone is willing to share so that the data analysts, all this can work out together for our future policy, everything, so that we can try to build up our smart city in the future. So start from education. I will believe everything starts from education.
Definitely. I think recently we heard about these two verbs very often, which is reskill and upskill. It is, to me, I think is is not you have nothing. You have something already. That's why you're surviving, right? But we need to reskill and upskill because the digital economy need a new set of skills that we need to retrain ourselves. So I think that I echo to Dr. Leung, that is very important, not only for the people working, but I think we moved to even primary school and secondary school. In the STEM side, I think we also talk about coding, but not too much on data yet. I think that data literacy should be just like STEM, is a very important thing that we actually help. I actually talk about something called teen data scientists. That means, can we make the children to be a data scientist, and then they can be a real data scientist in the future, or at least they can be a citizen data scientist in the future. So I think that definitely everybody can work together on that. Wendy, Dr. Lee, so can you share your view, how important it is?
I think it's very important indeed, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of companies has accelerated the digital transformation of their employees and also the business. And if we can be good at the digital tech competence, then we can have more insights from the data and also can increase our competitive advantages. For example, in the food delivery industry, for example, like those companies, if they can use the data, the big data, and have more insights, which types of food will be running out of stock soon, or which type of items are more popular, then they can better prepare those stock and also can tailor make better menu for their customers. And also nowadays, competition, we also need to face competition in a local market or with other companies around the world. So if we are good with this part, then we can keep competitive at all time. Thanks.
That's good. I'm sure that we can learn more from you about a lot of examples that your client is actually making use of data. I think in the panel, we will talk more about this, right? And how about KC? So you have a very good example to start with. So I'm sure that you have a lot more to share. So what do you think about how important is data these days?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical. The idea that data is important is, I think, has always been ingrained in business. It is only in recent years, with the increase in computing power, in the bandwidth of our wireless networks and so on, that much of that has become available to many more people. And I think the democratization of this kind of technology and data available for you to process has made it such that we are able to have something like a citizen data scientist. I really like your idea of the teen data scientist. I think that's something which, I mean, we shouldn't think of it as a job skill, but rather as a life skill, like knowing how to swim or riding a bicycle. You know, basic data numeracy and data skills is so primary to our everyday life that it should be so fundamental. We talk about data literacy. Why do we say literacy? You know, you can talk and speak, but still be illiterate. You can't read or write. And I think it's really important that people are able to understand that actually there is a language in data, and your ability and your ease in that medium will allow you to progress so much farther and so much more. And so on the one hand, are you able to read it? Like you're able to read a language. So somebody presents you with a chart. Can you see trends? Can you see, can you get insights out of it? Can you question? Do you have a mindset for questioning where that data comes from, the context in which it was built, the limitation of that data set? All those things are so critical. And I think children are so good at questioning things because they don't have so much preconception, they're so creative. And I think if we're able to introduce into their minds an ability to manipulate, to see these things we call data sets, for them it's like Play-Doh. They play with it. Yeah, it's not physical, it's mental, it's intellectual. But I think these young children can do wonderful things with them. I'm absolutely sure. And so I believe that it can only get better. And the other thing is, I think as an example, people talk about building information management systems. I heard of a project some time ago, actually, where a shopping mall, a very large shopping mall in Hong Kong, I'm not going to name it, but essentially, the owner of that mall wanted to reduce the energy consumption of that whole complex, a very, very large complex. And it was a socially minded owner, and they tried, and they had hit a kind of plateau as to how much they can do. And so they brought in a team from Beijing, young PhDs, a whole team of them. And basically what they did was they looked at the code, the actual code of the building management system, and they examined it line by line. And they said, actually, some of those things were wrong. It was actually wrongly commissioned. It wasn't commissioned properly. And so by looking through that and by revising some of the operations manual, which apparently was just sitting on a shelf in the management office somewhere, and nobody actually had touched them. And they were just handed the keys, on commissioning, so-called commissioning. They handed the keys and right, that's the on-off switch for the aircon, and that's mains for the water and power and whatever. And basically the management company, which would change from time to time anyway. So essentially all that was passed on was the keys, and none of the wisdom or none of the smartness that was designed by the engineers and the architects at the beginning. So all the hard work that Wendy and her teams and her clients would be doing to design this wonderful, really advanced system was not put to use. Mm-hmm. And so what these guys did was they recommissioned the whole thing. Mm. And they saw a step drop in the energy consumption. Right. So I think the willingness of management on one hand, so we talked about the children being really creative. On the other hand, we have to have a management that's really open and receptive to the importance of data and technology behind the data to drive that difference. And so what they did was they allowed a young team of PhDs to play with the data, play with the systems, and they found something really, really unexpected. So I have more to say about building information as well later on, but I think I'll leave it there. Yes, so the short answer is yes. Digital tech is critically important.
Thank you so much, Casey. I really like the teen data scientist idea. So when they present ideas or coming out with hypotheses, so are they data-driven enough? So if we can train that mindset at the very beginning on their life, so I think that will help them. They do not need to be a data scientist, but in terms of making decisions, solving problems, innovate with data, so that is definitely help. In fact, we are actually launching a teen data scientist in September this year, together with some primary school and secondary school, trying to see whether it works in terms of enhancing the data literacy of the student from the very beginning. So I will definitely update UKC on that as well. Thank you. Owen, I think you have a lot of experience in terms of AWS, how people are making use of data. So what do you see about these? How important it is these days?
Yeah, I think my feedback is really pretty much the same as all the other panelists. Is actually absolutely very important. One of the things that we see is that because when you're trying to do the data literacy, preparing the data is important. Another thing I see a lot of our customers, they may miss out is that when preparing the data, how to plan the data at scale. Yeah, because think about when your project really getting successful. It is not talking about one or two users going to use your data. You probably have more and more requests from your users. So how to make it at scale, that's one thing very important. The other area that we see that is quite missing is regarding the maturity model that Dr. Chan, you already shared, is that initially a lot of the people will start with operational data, getting insight from there. And then the next thing they're going to do is to do predictive modeling, machine learning. So think about it. If you don't have the data, how do you build and train your model? That's one area that I think a lot of people could expand their scope to look into. Is there any similar data that is available on open data? Okay, is there anything available on the internet already shared by other organizations or any other institution? That's a good starting point. Build your model. Do a lot more experiment with cloud, because again, I think you're gonna fail a lot of times until you get the right model. So prepare using some cloud technology, cloud services that easy for you to kick off your evaluation, your experiments. That's some of the experiences that we get from our customer.
Very good, Owen. I think data without cloud is it's just like a talk. So I think with cloud, I think many cases feasible and possible. I think affordable as well. So I think that is really good. Thanks, Owen. So I think we talk a little bit on the importance these days. I think everybody agree that is very important in different perspectives. But more importantly, I think different people will define the competency or literacy differently. I mean, what do you mean by data literacy? So what do you mean by data competence? People is good in data, what do you mean? And Casey and I also talk about, it's like a language, right? So and just like Chinese and English, maybe in this century or in this decade, we need to pick up another language called data, right? So different people would define differently. I would like to go one round. So what do you mean by data literacy, right? So maybe you can share with that, because with that, I think people will have an understanding where I want to catch up with. Otherwise, it's just like a concept without the bullets there. So may I get back to you, Joseph, Dr.
Okay.
Lim? Yeah, how do you define data literacy? What do you mean by data literacy?
My understanding or my way to look at data literacy is, firstly, is of course, we assume the data is available, but we need to know what type of data we have. This is the data literacy. And data competency is how we are going to manage those data. This means after the analysis, analytics, all this, how do you know, how could you make use of all this data? Okay. So there are two levels, yeah.
Okay, all right. So thank you, it's a good start. So you actually have different purpose or definition of data literacy and data competence. Competence is more how you make use of the data, right? How you're making use of it to make impact. And data literacy is to understand the data and where they are and who they are, and then so you can make use of it. So that is one area. So Wendy, I mean, how do you define data literacy?
I think we also need to use the data in an innovative way, okay. Or like how to make better decisions from the data. And talking about how to analyze the data, maybe when we collect the data, we also need to have a good plan how to collect the data. For example, nowadays, maybe some of the projects in the building and construction industries, we may use sensors to collect some of the data, and also to have more insights from the data, because when we use it for better decisions, maybe we can make more promptly reply to the users. For example, like using it for preventive maintenance in the maintenance and operations of properties, then I think this is what we need to know about the data competence.
Okay, that's good. So it's a more practical view how we can innovate and how we can actually make an impact in the commercial or, like example, in the preventive maintenance side. So Casey, can you share your view? So how do you define your data literacy?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, like you, as I said, literacy literally means ability to read and write. So on the one hand, seeing something and understanding what that's trying to say to you. So definitely a sense of, when you look at a chart, what is the chart trying to say? Even something as simple as the scale. Is it a log scale? Is it a continuous from 0 to wherever you are? Is there a break in the middle? Is there a trend? Is somebody trying to fit a trend to a story that they want you to believe? Is there some way of what's the context? Why is somebody trying to say that? So I think on one hand, yes, reading something is important and understanding the context in which where that thing comes from, who is trying to say that is also important. And also, on the other hand, speaking that language. So you hear it, you read it, but you have to write it and speak it. So being able to express yourself in terms of numbers, in terms of those charts and so on. So for me, I think it has to be both ways. You have to be fluent. So people talk about digital natives. I think people who are born in this generation, this generation open their eyes and they already see an iPhone, and so they're native in this. They're fluent in this medium. I think for data and numbers and numeracy, I think it's the same thing. I think we have to inculcate such a deep understanding and ability in this skill that people don't. To quote a friend, he can't remember when he didn't know calculus. For me, it's kind of strange because I still don't know calculus. But to him, calculus is so second nature to him that he cannot even remember what it was like not to know calculus. So I think it boils down to something like that. And the other thing which I think is really, really important is when you see something, I alluded to this, is it true? Is it fake news? Is it fabricated? Because it's so easy now to fabricate things. That story I told you guys in my video, I'm checking the chat to see if there are any comments. They still haven't. We have 73 participants. I don't know if anybody's fact checked it. I was just curious. Nobody has, I think. But I always fact check everything I hear. And in fact, I told actually the inverse of the truth. Nobody's fact checked it. So the baby weight in relation to the placenta is an indicator of health, but it's actually the inverse of what I said. I'm hopeful that this experiment, if you like, will make people realize that even at a forum like this, what people say should not be taken at face value. So with that, I'll leave it, but I think there's a lot more to say, but I think it's important that people should be really, really aware that quality of data, Owen talked about this, and I think absolutely true. The format and everything, if it's not in the right format, you just can't process it. The cleanliness of that data set is so key, but garbage in, garbage out. If the quality of what goes in is not guaranteed, then you cannot rely on the output. And I think that's so key. That's why it's so important when talking about data literacy and competence and so on. Sure, the manipulation, the tools are all there, but what are we dealing with? What does it actually mean? Where does it come from? I'll stop there.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. I would not say definition, but it's very nice to look at what is data literacy. So I think, Casey, you did a good job in explaining it from your experience what it is. I think it's like, for example, we always talk about data visualization. So it's to many of us or many of you, it seems that a very technical term. But in fact, when you can visualize the tons of data and you can a lot more easier to explain, your idea and even convince people to agree with you. So I think it's very important. So it becomes a language. When we talk about things in English today, right? So we're using a language trying to, communicate and even convince some of our points, right? But how about we can use data to achieve the same thing, to communicate, to convince people, you know, but in a very factual way, you know. So in the data science perspective, visualization is very important. But one more thing, seems that a lot people think about is serious stuff, but it's very important. I think Owen knows it all. Is storytelling. Storytelling. So we have to be using data to tell a story. So rather than putting up an Excel spreadsheet with all these, dummy and boring, data, things like that, how we can tell a story using data. Again, it's a communication, right? But if you only know Chinese and English, you do not know how to use data to tell a story, then you are far behind in the digital economy these days. So that's why data literacy to me is a communication way, and it's a language. So that is something that we should pick it up. So sometime in Chinese, excuse me, I don't know how to translate it, is 两文四語, 兩文四語. That means, Chinese, Cantonese, 普通話, and English. But one more thing you need to know about the language is data, 兩文四語, right? So something that I think in the next 3 to 5 years that everybody needs to pick it up. Owen, so what's your view about how do you see what is data literacy?
Okay, let me try to summarize it in one sentence. When an organization, which is we consider as data competence or someone being data competent, I consider that is an organization that can harness data as an asset to drive sustained innovation and create actionable insights to supercharge the experience for their customer so their customer can demand more. So if I put it into more perspective, this is kind of like a flywheel of data analysis. So you got the data. So as Casey mentioned, good quality data. Then based on your customer needs, their demand, you build up products. So your customer use these product or services, they provide feedback. And with the feedback, you also want to improve your data. Maybe there are some missing data you want to include in your whole data set. And with that, there is also an iterative process of experiment and innovate on top of this flywheel. So again, once the flywheel concept is that when you're doing it right, it will fly up and the whole process go data at scale.
Very good example. I think I did very much. It's, first of all, Owen talk about asset. So we can right now, we have been, including myself, involving in the startup a lot, right? So many years, a startup is very hard to beat those guys in the property industry, in the manufacturing industry, in the oil industry, right? So all of them, they have a very, very rich and a lot of assets. So they can make use of the asset to make a whole lot of money. But today, I think Owen mentioned about a point, data is an asset, right? So we don't need to have big machines, big building anymore. The thing, as long as you have a lot of good data, then you can actually, innovate, Owen talk about, and then you invent a new business model and then make your customer happy and come back to buy more. And then you, from that process, you also know what kind of data you're missing, and then you can get more data. You'll go to the flywheel, concept. This is a very nice one. So we are not trying to, talk about theories, but we're talking about data is actually an asset, and it can help you to innovate. It can help you to engage your customer, and the customer loyalty, they come back again, they trust you more in the flywheel concept. I think that's why Owen, you're from Amazon. Okay, so Amazon definitely is using all these network effect, flywheel, all these kind of things. They make them as the biggest company in the world. I mean, Amazon. So that's just something we need to know. But we cannot just rely on data scientists, from my view, right? So that's why we need to democratize it to most of the people in the company, right? Not just relying on 5%, 2% of the employee data scientists. So that's why we need to increase the data literacy of everybody. So in the company, in order to achieve what Owen talked about. So I think that is very important. Right. This is good. So we now have the understanding what data competence and data literacy is. But one question I didn't write down in the pre-panel discussion is, so we now is very critical. We know that it's very important. We have the general concept of what data literacy and data competence is. My question that just popped up from my mind is that, are they doing any good? I mean, data is important. Are they really creating some new jobs, right? So if it's important, I pick it up. Is it guaranteed that I can get more jobs? Do you see it in your area? Do you see it creating a lot of new jobs? Because I'm seeing that AI is automating things, and a lot of people don't need to do anything anymore because their job is automated by AI, powered by data, right? So people are losing jobs. But at the same time, in the topic of today, we are talking about how we can help in employment, right? So how do you see, what kind of jobs you see is already there? It's a new job because the people need people making use of data. So anyone want to start with? So it gives more confidence for people, all the audience today, right? Now, we know it's important, but can I guarantee me can I get a good job in the next 3 to 5 years? What kind of new jobs is coming up? With the company or need data. So can you just share with us from your experience? Anyone want to start?
Maybe can I suggest something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think machines and machine learning is getting so good now. Specialist AI is already way better than humans. So AlphaGo, so these are machines that are dedicated for one specific task, are getting so good that they are better than the best human. But generalist AI still isn't there yet, but it'll catch up, and it'll catch up very quickly. So I think the danger, if you like, to humans and the human worker is really not to try and compete with them. Why do something that a machine can do? Why do long division when a calculator can do that for you? And you extend that to AI and so on. And I would argue that data science and data manipulation and data competency and literacy should not really be relegated to a specialist group of people, although we do need them. But I think the general population, the general worker, the general professional should be literate. Just as, years ago, I remember applying for a job, you write, know Microsoft Excel, Word, and so on. Nobody writes that anymore because people assume that you know. You cannot not know. And I think data literacy is something that should be on everybody's basic skills. And it would be assumed that people would know a certain level of data competency when they graduate from college or school or whatever. But rather, I would offer that machine learning and AI is good for supplementing decision making. So, for example, if you look at data comes in all sorts of forms and shapes. Data is words, data is images, and with image recognition being so good now, you have image recognition for things like tumor and tumor diagnosis, assisting doctors. So will they replace the doctors? No, but they'll make their jobs a lot easier in identifying the patterns that, you know, the human eye was the only way to do it, but now the machines are able to do it more quickly and more efficiently, and ultimately it will pass through a doctor before a diagnosis is done. So in terms of augmenting, if you like, augmenting the ability of the human being is really where the opportunity lies. But you still have to have the doctor. You still have to have the specialist there to use that machine, to use that technology, and ultimately it's a human decision.
That's good one. So, Wendy, in your industry, do you see there's any new roles emerging that is new, is not exist before, but it's really help people to really find new jobs opportunities?
Yes, I noticed some of the construction companies, they may have a new roles called digital coaches. So these coaches will provide support to employees and also departments to help them work in a more efficient way. For example, using latest technologies to support their work. So this coach can bridge the employees at different teams and to work better. Especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, some of the site offices, they may close for a week, but how can they communicate or collaborate with different teams? Then the best use of data is very important. And these digital coaches can also help the employees to acquire the skills better. And also, another example is some companies, they may like to collect the data on carbon footprint to improve their impact on the environment. So after collecting this data and then do analysis, then they can pick the right materials for their job during the design process, and also can easily see the impact of their work to the environment. I think this is quite good example.
Very good example. So, Owen, I think your company and also your clients, I'm sure that you have seen many new roles that not even exist in the last 2 or 3 years. So what do you see? I mean, what kind of new jobs that you can give some example to us?
Yeah. Okay, based on my experience, I learned it from LinkedIn. Back in like 2018, 2019, the top search jobs were cloud computing. And the second one was AI machine learning. But last year, the position swapped. AI machine learning becomes the #1, and cloud computing was #2 last year. And in regards to machine learning, I remember I read an article from World Economic Forum. They mentioned in the next 5 years, there is a demand of around 54 million data-related jobs will be needed. But at today, the estimation is around 300K personnel that is working in that industry with that skill set. So from what I've seen from the data that we collected, there is a high demand for jobs in the data, be it data engineering, be it machine learning, model building, or data scientists. So it is, we see very high demand on that. And on top of that is, one other thing is that we've been rolling out some programs called the AWS Educate, which is a free curriculum for educators and students. So students from the age of 14 to university, they are entitled to use those free curriculum. And on top of that, they are provided with some free cloud credits to allow them to experiment. I've been talking to some teachers and students in the past years. I learned that a lot of them, even in the age of 14, they already start learning Python as a language to start analyzing data. Yep. So I do see there is a demand, and also there's also a very strong interest in the education sector, picking up skills in this area.
Definitely, I think this is good. I think that if you are, going that path in terms of data scientists, I'm sure that you will have very good opportunities in terms of finding good jobs in the future. But according to Gartner, actually, if you're not data scientists, because these data technologies, including AWS, is making it easier. So all these machine learning things is getting easier to use, more user-friendly. So they predict that if a company have one data scientist, they are going to have another 10 citizen data scientists. So because the tools is automated, it's much easier to use. So if you can pick up the data literacy we talked about and how to talk this language, actually we can create another 10 citizen data scientists. So it actually, that will fit into what we talk about, democratize data literacy to most of the people in the company. So in terms of job creation, that means it will create a lot more jobs. So if you get fired because you're accountant and all your accounting jobs are automated by AI, then maybe you can think of to become a citizen data scientist. So you can communicate with your client using data rather than using your book. So those are the things that you can consider. All right, so Joseph, what do you see about this? Do you see any jobs from your students or from your networks?
Actually, I think I'm echo to Casey sharing is talking about, I think agree not, we are not going to compete with AI or this new technology. But actually, I quote maybe two examples that I have experienced recently. Many people, actually, many experts already put some articles is mental health will become another pandemic after COVID-19 because there are so many issues. We have so many pressures issues nowadays. So many like this case. I think we can have lots of big data doing the analysis, but finally, you still need human to take care of this type of mental health case. AI cannot take this role. And another example is something on health tech. And if you take it on legal tech, even nowadays, many countries or governments, courts, they are going to digitize all these documents, everything. Even a law firm, they start to do lots of AI. But finally, I think we still have the mechanism. We still go to court, but only speed up your understanding on the case or talking about shortcut the time so that you can spend more time to prepare for your case, for litigation, for arbitration, or for mediation. So I think my view is we need AI to speed up our time for all this processing, all these analytical issues, but it's still human. Especially, I think when we need to, if my recommendation for most people is if you are afraid of your job will get away because of AI, I would prefer is start looking for more human-oriented tasks, because finally, decisions still come from human. This is my thinking.
Okay, thank you. Let's switch gear a little bit because open data is part of our data world. So besides companies that we talk about a lot of good things and challenges already, how about open data, right? So if we have a better data literacy, how we can make use of open data to really help, for example, Hong Kong, to become a better city or somebody called a digital citizen, right? So from the democratized data literacy to the employees of a company, to democratize data literacy to general citizen in Hong Kong. So what do you see about the good things about this and how how it will benefit Hong Kong in terms of social impact or the economy? So because the question we talk about in the last few questions is more clean to industries, but how about citizens of Hong Kong citizens? If we can enhance their data literacy, how they can make use of open data, for example, how they can, if they can do so, how they can benefit Hong Kong in terms of the society and in terms of the Hong Kong economy. I think KC probably have been in a better position to talk about it, right? So can you start first? Yeah.
That's an interesting question. Open data, I think, stirs up lots of perhaps controversial ideas, because somebody has to contribute that data. And as Owen mentioned, data is considered an asset, is the new oil. And so who wants to share that asset with other people? Who gathers it? And who wants to share it? And I think the idea that data should be democratized, or the access should be democratized, I think is definitely a commendable one. But in terms of implementation, I see that there are just structural difficulties with the owners of those data sets, and what they share and what little they share, whether or not that's really useful or insightful, that's open. I don't actually know enough about what's actually being shared at the moment, but just off the top of my mind, for example, if only we can get more data on movement of people. You know, we talk about smart cities, we talk about urban planning, we talk about Hong Kong being a wonderful example of efficiency because of our public transport system, but there is actually a lot of optimization opportunity if we are able to capture where people live to where they need to get to work or go to school, and the reverse flow in the evening. And the data is absolutely there. You know, the people who have access to the Octopus cards, the MTR only knows where you go in and where you go out, but they don't know where you originate from and where you actually end up, which building you end up in. But them in conjunction with bus companies, minibus companies, are you able to log where you get on? Maybe. Are you able to log where you get off? We don't at the moment. You don't check out, you only check in. So that's a missed opportunity there. But that data set exists elsewhere. And the obvious place to look is the telecoms company, because our devices are all have geo positioning. And so, you know, the place where you spend your 10 or 12 hours every night is where you live, and the place where you spend 10 or 12 hours during the day is where you work. And somehow, you know, you see that migration, that human migration every day, 5 days a week. It should indicate something for our urban planners, whether or not that gold mine is being exploited, or I shouldn't say exploited, used, is something that, you know, our authorities and the people that are in charge should think about. I think I'll leave the time for our other panelists, but I think the data exists. Whether or not it's readily available and open is quite another matter.
Hi, Owen. I would like to point to you about this question, because you have seen so many cities around the world, how we can help Hong Kong people to really make use of data, including open data, of course, to really help us to be better. You know, compared to other cities in the world, you know, what are we lacking, and what we can do to really empower our citizens to make use of data, including open data. So it really help us in terms of society, in terms of economy. What do you see about this?
Thank you, Dr. Cham. Let me share by sharing a number of examples that our open data program already been supporting. Number one, I think I briefly mentioned the transport for London data. So once the data is available, there are over 600 applications using those data and built on top of that. And and serving about 42% of Londoners. So as far as I understand, one of the example is allowing people to identify the electric car charger location. So that because when they travel, I think Londoners travel a lot more and farther than what we do in Hong Kong. So usually they drive to a train station, and then they will take on another transit or railway for their commute. So some of the application help them to identify the most earth sustainable and lowest carbon way to travel. So that's really helped the Londoner. The other example I want to share is USGS, the United States Geological Survey. They share about 10 trillion LiDAR point cloud records on AWS. So LiDAR points are the building features, different data from there. So how does the people use it? So one of the things that our AWS engineer did is we use a algorithm, machine learning algorithm from the SpaceNet challenges, and overlay those LiDAR data onto satellite images. Both the satellite images and the LiDAR data are all from open data. So one thing they can do is they can automatically map all these features onto the satellite images. That also helps to accelerate some things like the 3D map and also the geospatial analysis. Okay. And one last thing is about community, because I think when you have open data, you want it to be sustainable. And we need to think about the user, the use cases, and from your customer perspective. So a good example is the Open Data Cube project. Okay, it is a project that with 50 countries already participating on it, and it is a sustainability project that the community develop open source utilities algorithm, share among their member, and also open to the public. So there are two projects that are already using the Open Data Cube assets from them. One is the Digital Earth Australia, and the other one is Digital Earth Africa. So one of the interesting project that they did is that after they extract a time series of satellite images, and what they did is they import the data, they do all the data masking, removing the cloud, and then find the clean water source for their villages. So nowadays in Africa, the villages can simply look into their mobile phone, identify the closest source of clean water, and that really life or death to them, because it is really crucial to them. And that's some of the very good example that we see how open data can help. And to answer your questions, Dr. Chan, I think for use cases in Hong Kong, we can start with data from other countries, because that is the data is already available. The data scientists in Hong Kong can use those data as the starting point to prove their model and develop their analysis algorithm. I think that could be the starting point. Once our local data is ready, they can fine tune it to a local scenario. Because a lot of cases, when we look at the satellite images, there are not many cities like Hong Kong. We are very dense. We got very many high buildings. It's a very different problem that we need to resolve. However, we can always reference to other big cities that is around the world. So that's some of the best practices that we see.
Very useful, Owen. I think the sustainability one, I think, is a good one. So if we can have some area that we can help the citizens to think of and make use of the data to create something like, for example, sustainability, I think is a good start. I think I look at this question from two sides. One is the data availability. That means, how much data we get from government and from enterprises. So this is the accessibility, the data availability. The other one is how you can incentivize or motivate the people to really innovate using that kind of data to solve whether it's a society problem or a commercial problem. So in that sense, I don't see too much happening in Hong Kong yet. So I know there's a data availability is an issue. I'm seeing that, I'm sure that when you have done a very challenging job to convince the enterprises to put data in your open data initiative. So it is still a lot of things to do more on that. But even you have the data, how you can actually motivate the stakeholder to make use of it, to innovate it with it, and solving the pain points. And then they adapt to use data to solve more and more problems. And then if they do not have enough data, like you said, and they probably ask for more, right? So that is the cycle, coming back, not just happening in the commercial world, but also in the society. And to be a smart citizen, like Hong Kong government talk about, smart citizen. So we need to enhance our citizens in terms of their data literacy, right? So I think that is something we link it back to the topic of today. So Wendy, in your industry, do you see, I think there's different initiative trying to put data together. So are the companies or citizens around, are they making use of the data you accumulated to really innovate something new? Maybe it's good for the market, maybe good is for the society.
Yes, so I think I've just heard about like open data usage from other speakers as well, and I also want to add a few points as well.
Go ahead.
Because for example, we see every year there are more and more categories in the data.gov.hk website. So we see the Hong Kong government is also adding more open data available to the public. However, we know a lot of SMBs, they may not have sufficient staff to work on these open data, or they may not know well about this. So I would suggest we may also organize more conference or even competitions to have more awareness for the SMBs so that they know what kind of open data are available to use, and also give them more insights, more creative ideas, like what kind of applications they may make use of this data and for to serve the society. And for example, like what kind of APIs available, or what kind of skills they must train up their staff so that they can also be more competitive.
Yeah, excellent idea, Wendy. I think data hackathon, I think, is getting much popular in the corporate world. But I think it would be wise. I'm sure the government is doing it already. Science Park and Cyberport also doing something. But I think it would be good not to put the data static, but rather I think how we can, like I said, incentivize or motivate the general public to really aware and also make use of it and become a habit to make use of it, and also close the loop, because when they participate, they will find out the gaps, right? And then they know the gaps, and then they will come back and ask for more, just like Owen talked about, right? So that will have the flywheel, not just for Amazon, the flywheel for Hong Kong government as well, right? So that's something I think it will help as well. Joseph, do you have any view to add on these things? Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's a give and take situation. Yes, I think need to educate. I think from the government point of view, I think I understand they're doing more and more of course, when compared with the past. But I think, is it enough? Or is it fast enough? This is also a point, because you are doing, but you are not doing fast. There's another issue. And also transparency, I think, is also another issue, because transparency can also can give more trust to the citizen. Citizen will feel, oh, okay, we got more information for us to pick the choice, to do the analysis. And from the enterprise point of view, or other industry, I think also they need to understand, although they might come with something they think will be quite sensitive in terms of some data. But I think they need to understand is, we must have a share mind. Is if everyone don't share, we don't have any data to analyze. So as a result, they are still suffering. We are all suffering. So I think apart from competition, I think other means that can stimulate our stakeholders, government, actually all the related stakeholders, stimulate them to have deep mindset. I think the mindset is important. We doesn't have any skill set issue. It's a mindset issue. Yeah.
Okay, so mindset is very important. Mindset, or you call it culture, is also important as well. So, I think that is not one-off. We have to have quite a lot of initiative to make it happen. Maybe competition, maybe training. That actually, I think I would like to pop up one more question, pulling question to the audience, because we have talked a lot of things already, but I would like to see what kind of challenges they are facing when they put forward the data agenda, right? So thank you, John. So I give 1 or 2 minutes for everyone to scan the QR code and answer the question there.
Dr. Chan?
Yes?
It's Owen. I would like to supplement with the economic benefits that was
go ahead. While we're waiting, go ahead. Yeah.
Right. So it's the same case that I share, the USGS, the US Geological Survey. So initially they didn't share any Landsat data. So they asked for their citizen or researcher to pay for charges when they use those data. But once they opened it up back in 2011, they generate about $1.8 billion worth of economic impact to them. So some of the key usages are analyzing their crop quality and also informing their farmers to optimize their location on irrigation. So that is one of the very interesting case that I want to share. There are always some financial benefits if we look into the data, because we always say that data is more expensive than gold, right? So if it is an asset, that there is definitely some value that we can take out of it. And it's a matter of how and when and what tools we're going to use. And with the right mind from a data scientist, definitely I think more data, more open data is actually will benefit Hong Kong as a society.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the data, definitely there's a dollar term behind it. So we talk a lot about the term called democratization. That means we want to make everybody, making use of data, put it this way. But there's another term is very popular, very useful in the big data world. We call it data monetization. So that means how we can actually build a business model around the data, so we can actually create value for our company. The one obvious example is advertising, of course, right? Facebook making a whole lot of money and Google looking a lot of money because they monetize the data well. But from now till then, I think a lot of things we need to do, a lot of challenges. For example, whether we have enough data, whether we have enough skills, and more importantly, whether we have the culture and mindset Those are the things I think is very important. So that
Okay.
gets to
Can
our,
I, sorry, Dr. Sham,
yes.
can I just make one
Sure.
more comment on this?
Yep.
Yeah, on the subject of open data, I think there is probably a middle ground where, you know, data is proprietary, private, and on the other side, democratized, totally open. But I think there is a middle ground where if there is, you talk about data monetization, okay, for private enterprise, monetization definitely is the motivation, but for a society, there is actually value in data which can be exploited. And I talked about just now, for example, the migration of people, the movement of people in a city, in an urban setting. There are, you know, very definite benefits from a better organization of a transport system, for example, from understanding where the bottlenecks are, where the pain points are, and solving those. So we talk about, you know, net zero for Hong Kong in 2050. These are very real problems. On the one hand, we can monetize it, but actually there's something greater than that. And I think if we're able to say, okay, if data is available, but we don't want to share it with everyone, how about we share it with just the people that matter, that need it, and that are able to provide the greater good for our community. And I think the willingness of the holders or owners of that data to share it with those people who are able to make a difference. We talked about just now transportation, for example, but on the other hand, data from our health records, for example, can they be made anonymized? Can they be made accessible in part, for example, to data scientists to see that actually, you know, certain drugs are having certain benefits on certain groups of people without having to do clinical trials on those people, because people have taken it and we have the results of those effects, and so on and so on. And so I think there are lots of middle grounds that people should and could explore, where, you know, data can be put to use of society.
Absolutely. I mean, these monetization is sometimes we talk about commercial more, but in terms of the social impact, I think that is another way we look at it, is really helping our society in many ways. You know, health, in terms of the life quality, you know, also environmental, definitely, and all sort of thing. So I think, Casey, you have a very good point. If we can not open everything, can we open it up to somebody they really care about, for example, sustainability, care about public health, for example. So how we can actually making use of data to really create some social impact. That I think is another way to look at it. So the meaning of open data, of course, is definitely helpful for commercial use, right? But on the other hand, I think it's also very equally important for the social good as well. So I think thanks for bringing it out, Casey. This is a very good one. I would like to talk about the result of the second polling question. So about the challenges that we face when we really want to put forward our data initiative in our company. So the top challenge people will talk about is about 67% is talking about data issues like data quality and data accessibility. So data is still a very top challenge for us when we want to put our data initiative forward. But there's another second and third is about 50% of the people. They also think there's a very challenging things that they need to take care of. One is data mindset, culture, and skills that we talk about. And also financial support and lack of business case. It's also about 50%. So those are the three top challenges that we are facing. Maybe we have the concept about data literacy and know how important it is. But when we want to put it forward, that's all the challenges that we face. Okay, so one last question before I take a look at the Q&A.
is, okay, we know how important it is, and we look at some application example already, and we look at some challenges already. How we can equip ourselves, okay? How we can pick up the skills, or what we call the reskill ourselves, right? You know, really to be a data literate professional, so we can have a better job or create more impact to the society. So how we can pick it up. So Joseph, will you want to talk about it?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Definitely, I think lifelong learning cannot be avoided. We must, I think, to be honest, I think not only in technologies, actually, is every type of. We must have a mindset is technology. Not only technology, the world is moving so fast, and just like COVID-19. Recently, before COVID-19, we all say, oh, it's very difficult to have online learning. It's very difficult to put it forward. It's very difficult to have a online conference work it properly. But now it's always happening every minute. So that's why sometimes is I think we need to prepare ourselves. Is better to skill up. It's always skills up and have a lifelong learning mindset. And I would say is, of course, there are so many training available. So how should we pick up? I think pick the one that could sustain your career or sustain your your life. I mean, means your lifestyle, all this related. So I think lifelong learning is the key.
Lifetime learning. I think there's a lot of things to learn, but at the same time, we have a lot more training available. But is training enough, or there's other way we can learn about you know, data and enhance our data literacy? Just yeah.
I think something like this type of discussion roundtable, every I think actually is we all need to do it together because we come from different industry, different experience. So I think it's good is from time to time, not because training sometimes it looks like a one-way direction. It's also, so that's why I think full sharing, this type of online sharing, or even articles, even forum, or other means. And also keep ourselves, also another mind is we need to also have something in mind is to prepare ourselves for the future and not just stick to the current situation. So I think lifelong learning is also a mindset because we can learn from anywhere. We don't need formal course training. Of course, formal course will be more structured. Sometimes will lead you to have a better career, maybe a better job. But if not looking for this area, actually is there are so many information around. But aligned with what Casey had mentioned, yes, need to be aware whether we need to do some fact check because the information now is too massive. We need to have a judgment whether this is true or not.
Right. Thank you. Anyone want to respond to that? How you can, you know, train yourself up or your colleagues around to become a data, you know, literacy people? Yeah. Owen, you want to talk about it? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Chan. I agree with Dr. Leung about lifelong learning. For me, like even for myself, I've spent quite a lot of time in on internet searching for free learning materials. I realized that in the past 1 to 2 years, especially under COVID, there are lots of free training courses available online. Just to give you an example from Amazon, we are offering more than 500 free courses, interactive labs, and virtual day-long training sections available online. And one of the training that I personally took is the machine learning and artificial training classes, which consists of about like 65 digital courses. Most of them are free. Which is available, anyone can take it. And it's designed for business user to all the way to data scientists. So My sharing is, if you're interested in learning more about data literacy, go online, do some searching. There are a lot of free resources available. That's the experience I want to share.
Yep. So Wendy or Casey, anything, your experience, how we can help the people, empower themselves to be more data literate? Yeah.
I suggest every one of us allocates some time every day to refresh your knowledge. For example, it may be difficult to allocate a few hours on one day to do the training, no matter it's online training or physical training. But if every day maybe just spend 15 minutes and then watch those training shared by other people on the internet, then maybe it's easy to have this kinds of continuous learning, because every one of us need to be more competitive anyway.
Definitely. Yeah, Casey?
Yeah, totally agree. Lifelong learning is one of my favorite phrases. I think one thing that drives us to learn is our curiosity. And I think it's important that we should not lose our curiosity as we grow. You talk about the teen data scientists. I think children are incredibly creative and are incredibly curious. We all were children once upon a time. And I think we all had that curiosity once upon a time. And somehow through the education system or through the examination system, perhaps, and perhaps the pressures of work, we are, that aspect of our humanity is eroded and sometimes suppressed. But I think we all have it inside us, and having that curiosity, that creativity, and also that awareness that there is a gap between where we are and where we want to be, where our skill sets are today and where the skill sets that we need to do a task needs to be. And so being able to make an assessment and do a delta analysis. Okay, this is where I am. That's where I need to be in order to do that task. That's where we drive ourselves to learn, and that process needs to be ongoing all the time. And so, we might know something as trivial as Microsoft. When they moved into Microsoft 365, I couldn't find the buttons anymore. They moved the buttons. So I knew what I wanted to do, but I couldn't find the buttons. So that's trivial. But I think there's a lot more to that than, so that sort of reminded me, oh God, I learned that when I was at uni, like years and years and years ago. And the interface had not really changed for all that time. Suddenly somebody moved my buttons and I couldn't find where the formatting was or whatever. I can't remember what it was now. And so that gap is a kind of reminder. It's trivial, but it's kind of reminder that, yeah, we shouldn't stand still. And I think going forward for the younger members of our audience, I think, the future of work is no longer a career as such. And I think we should see ourselves as being a service rather than an employee. So we sell our services based on our experience and our portfolio of experience and skills. And as you start to do more projects, you complete more tasks, you have an accumulated set or group of assets and skills, and you will increase that set of skills and assets as you go along. And so it's really important that we are open-minded. We are able to reskill or upskill, as Dr. Charm said. It's so important that that awareness of being insufficient is always there. We should never stay still, and we should never be, right, I know that, I know Office, I know Microsoft, whatever, and I'm done. No, it's way more than that.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. I think it's time for Q&A. In fact, along our conversation, we already answered a few questions from the audience. We talked about comparing cities, how we can make use of open data to help to society in different way. Where are we in terms of Hong Kong? I think Owen and Casey already talked about it. And there's one question that I think is interesting. I think Casey mentioned about STEM before. It seems that right now we are doing a pretty decent job in terms of STEM for our next generation in terms of training and nurturing. But how about the smart citizenship, right? So is Hong Kong government doing enough? Or what kind of thing they're doing right now in terms of enablement or empower us to be a smart citizen? Anyone want to respond to it? Or what do you think is a smart citizen? And what we should equip ourselves with the help of government? Anyone? Owen? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah.
So what I see is a lot of focus in the STEM conversation that I had is really about data, machine learning, that area. I think for general students, when they pick up the STEM skills, I highly suggest they also look into learning more about cloud computing. The reason is with cloud computing, they are able to do more experiment. Okay, they bring in all the compute to the data, and they can leverage the broader and deeper sets of tools and skill sets, not only on AWS, but also on any other cloud that is available for them to analyze their data, build their services. So I think that is very important for them to learn more about cloud computing in general.
Anyone want to respond to this question from the audience? I think for my view, before Casey want to respond, I think government is helping a lot of area, trying to, might not call it a what they call the smart citizen program, but you look at for example, business, for example, helping the SME to make use of different e-commerce products or software to help them to do business online. And also we talk about the education. For example, they have programmed actually 500,000 Hong Kong dollars to really help companies to learn about digital technologies and how to make use of digital technologies, called our TTP program. So I think this scattered around program is helping general citizens to pick up digital technologies and how to make use of it. But whether it's good enough or any gaps there and how we can improve from it, or maybe just like Wendy talked about, maybe we should a lot more data hackathons and how we can help the health, sustainability, environmental, and do we have a roadmap for people in Hong Kong to become a smart citizen? So that sort of thing, I think probably we need to give it more thought. Casey, you want to respond to that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I do agree that citizens need to smarten up. I am confident that citizens are able to smarten up. But I think more importantly is that when government or enterprise or startups, especially, we talk a lot to startups, and I take the example of a startup, I often see people working on a solution. They work on a solution in the abstract. They think that their solution is great. And then they go to the market and they look for the problem. They devise a solution in the absence of the understanding of the problem. So what we don't want is a solution looking for a problem. It has to be demand driven. It has to be a fundamental understanding of what the need is. And then we go and find the resources to address that need, whether it's government or private sector or startups or whatever. And I think that's really key to everything that we do. And I think citizens are really good at adapting themselves to whatever's available. So, you know, when there is a pain point, when there is a problem that needs to be solved, if a solution is provided, then people will quickly take up that convenience, that service. So I think the citizen is not really the problem. It's the proposal of the solution in response to that problem.
Thank you, Casey. I'll come back to you later. I think, Joseph, you have a class to go.
Yes.
So, may you wrap it up? What is your final recommendation to the audience? How they can strengthen themselves with data literacy and competence to stay relevant in the data economy? What's your final recommendation?
I think my final recommendation is, as I said before, is all stakeholders, including citizens. Government, of course, play an important role, but I think as citizens, we all need to, because government cannot help everyone. This is a fact. But I think as a general citizen, we all need to train up ourselves, prepare ourselves. Otherwise, we can't move forward our smart city and all related smart initiatives become a reality. Because when we compare with Singapore, yes, government has taken the strong lead, but on the other hand, the citizens are also have a strong mind to move ahead. So that's why I think I'm not comparing these two cities, but I think this is important. Yes, we need to get ourselves prepared. So this is my final word.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I let you go. So I know
okay.
you have a class to go.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
So the same question for another 3 panelists. So what's your final recommendation? How us can really strengthen our data literacy so we can be more competitive and relevant in today's world. Wendy, you want to talk first? Yeah.
Yes, I think we can also have active participation, and we can all contribute something to society and can be a thought leader to influence our colleagues as well. Because some of us, if we can drive the corporate culture, and that will also make a difference.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Wendy. Owen, you want to have the last word? Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, I want to respond to what Casey just shared about the challenge. I think a process for innovation is important, and we must find a way to, as I called earlier, a sustainable innovation. A process must be in place so that we can do it repeatedly, so everybody can learn it and be able to innovate. When I say innovate, there is an end customer problem that you can develop or research and for a solution that someone benefits from there. So with that, I quickly want to share with you, there is a process that we use in Amazon. We call it working backward. It is a process that we use internally, not only for product and services, but also helping customer to prepare their data. So I mentioned a phrase called purpose-driven data set. We use this methodology and process to shape and collect data and justify why we build the data set and the analysis or the machine learning algorithm. Okay, so it's a very good process.
Thank you, Owen. So Casey, can you quickly just give your final recommendation? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think, yeah, this is definitely a fantastic conversation. We've started, but it must continue. Open data literacy, smart city, all these things are so interlinked, intertwined. Machine learning definitely will come to the fore. It'll take a very, very big role in a lot of things. Whole industries will get wiped out. Chatbots are essentially now destroying, eliminating the customer service industry in China, for example, and so on and so on and so on. And so I think young people, I'm talking especially about young people here, please be open-minded. Please be open-minded to resources that are available to you, opportunities that are available to you. I didn't mention the Greater Bay, but there's definitely a lot of opportunities available up there for personal development as well as technical development. Yeah, let's continue this conversation.
Thank you. Continue. So thank you so much. I think we learned a lot from all of you, and to be innovative, sustainability, we can sustain our innovation with data. I think is very important. So mindset and also how we can be skilled and upskills. We have different ways to learn it. So I think that's the end of our panel. I'll pass it back to John to wrap it up. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I just had one brief thing to interject. So there were a number of comments about the safe sharing of data, and I think it's useful to have the context. So I encourage people who are interested in safe sharing to look at the videos for panel 1, which looks specifically the issue of sharing spatial data in the context of the virus, and also to look at the standalone videos. I have a relatively long video, nearly half an hour, which looks in great detail at all the policy issues and how we can safely share, because simply sharing medical data or mobile phone spatial data is not safe without necessary protections. So that's all discussed in some detail in that video. So I encourage people who are interested in the safety issues to look at these other videos. Back to you, Dr. Shah.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for all of you. So I think definitely it's only one seminar here. So we need to keep lifetime learning. So from various initiatives, I think it's very important to keep that mindset. So thanks a lot. I think that's the end of our discussion today. So have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you.